Hey beautiful souls, welcome back or welcome to The Hawk. And my name is Lana Zielinski and I work in the spirit dimensions. As always in all my videos, simply take what resonates and you're welcome to leave the rest right here. I had a meetup with one of my mentoring groups, a group of students who have taken several of my workshops on spirituality and mediumship growth and development. And we were just kind of chit-chatting and kind of getting caught up on how they were doing and what they've been doing with their spiritual practices. And I asked the group a question. I said to them, what's been really easy? What have you learned that has just been really easy to master? And they all had a variety of answers. The most common one was, it's really easy to stay in alignment and to stay positive when everything around me is exactly that. The people that I'm around are positive. My day's going exactly as I want it to go. But as soon as there's a hiccup in life, as soon as there is that fork in the road where we have to call on trust and we have to lean in, they all reported back to me that that's when they struggle. They also told me that they struggle the most with other people's stuff. So let's talk about that. It is really easy when life is good, when things are going the way we want it, and we seem to be getting everything that we want, and life is just a bed of roses and we're having a wonderful time. And then that bed of roses, we kind of lean in a little bit, get kind of comfy, and we get a thorn. All of a sudden, we can literally come out of alignment. Quite often, the thorn that we sit on or lean up against isn't even our stuff. It may be somebody that you care about is having a hard time, or maybe people at work are really giving you a hard time, or perhaps there's your own life stuff has surfaced to give you a hard time. And when things get a little rough or picky from a thorn, we often kind of step back or forget about our spiritual practices. We suddenly dive into the physical world full on with our grievances and with our frustrations, and we often will sit there a little bit. And sitting there a little bit and feeling and learning is okay. Staying in it is kind of puts us back in a momentum that we have worked really hard to come out of. So, many of you here following me on this channel have shared with me your spiritual journey and your growth and the aha moments and all those glorious times. And many of you have reached out and said, okay, I'm struggling now. What do I do? What do I do when I'm struggling? When we struggle, it's even more important to lean into those spiritual tools. And I've talked about a few of them here on the channel. I've given you some things, some tips and tricks for your own spiritual toolbox. And when things are tough, that's when we need to lean into them even more, tapping in even more to the grounding and the bubbling and the journaling and this more self-care. You need to turn the volume up on your spiritual practices when the physical world is teaching you something, or you feel that you're struggling with something. When we lean in there a little bit closer and listen to our guides and ask those questions and sit in the power of spirit and really try to stay in that alignment, we're able to deal with other things around us from that perspective, from a spiritual perspective. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be exactly what you want and it's going to get really easy, but it means that we're going to go through those hard times with our spirituality, in alignment with our spirit guides, and our coping mechanisms are increased. Because we're giving ourselves those mindful moments where we can go in and change those thoughts. We can sit and ask for clarity. And we do often receive what we want to hear, but we often are shown things that we don't want to see. And that is a big one for a lot of people. Quite often we get so hooked on how I want this to work out, and Spirit's trying to show you it's not for your highest good. And we cling to it. We dig our fingernails right in there. We cling to, but that's not what I want. And source energy says, but what you want is not going to serve your highest good. And we go back and forth a lot in that vibration. And always, if we stay in that resistance, I can guarantee you, always at some point, it's going to not serve you. It's not going to serve you, all that resistance. A river flows downstream for a reason. As powerful as water is, it doesn't have that resistance to try and battle the current to go up the stream. It goes down the stream, going with the flow, leaning into the trust, taking our spiritual practices with us. Sometimes I have to wear the biggest life preserver that I can possibly find, my spiritual life preserver. I'll put it on, and it's about, okay, I've got to go down this river of learning. I'm going to get scraped and energetically scraped or bumped, but I'm going to tap into my spiritual practices and go through these tough times with my spiritual practices, even when I don't understand. And not understanding is one of the biggest things that us humans struggle with, because we want all the answers. We like to have the answers before we make the decision. We want to know if it's going to work out the way we want to before we do it. We want so badly to know before we try. It's like being in a blind taste test sometimes, isn't it? If you've ever tried a blind taste test, if you haven't, go ahead and give it a try. Blindfold yourself and let somebody feed you something, and see how resistant you are to open your mouth to taste something without being able to see it. Life can be the same way for us. We want to see it and know the outcomes before we taste it. And it doesn't always work that way. And the learning does take us to new levels. When I've sat in reflection on my own journey and I look back at some of the really hard mountains that I've had to climb, the ones where I didn't think I could take another step, somehow I managed to do it. Somehow I managed to climb up that mountain. And when I got to the top of that mountain and I looked back at how far I've come, and I look ahead of me of what's now in front of me, there's that relief. There's that relief of, okay, I went through that. I understand some of it, perhaps not all of it, but I'm on the other side of that. And I'm still relatively in one piece. We do go through our journey with some broken pieces. Sometimes we're carrying our broken pieces and spending some time putting those pieces back together. And do we always have a deep understanding of why? Why is one thing that I resist asking. Every now and again I do lean in myself with, why, Spirit? Why? I've learned to kind of resist asking the why and working forward with going forward through it. I don't have to understand every single thing that happens around me or in the physical world. I just have to try and navigate it the best that I can. The other thing that we quite often do that makes the journey even more of a struggle is sometimes we do get too involved or wrapped up in other people's struggles. We can get pulled into that. And other people's struggles, you got to be careful that you're not stealing them. Don't steal other people's struggles. Help them from your lane. Guide them, give them suggestions or support, but don't steal the struggle. And that's really hard not to do when it involves people that mean the most to us. Whether it be your kids or your spouse or your best friends or people that we really care about the most, we tend to want to take on their struggles. And what happens with that is we go through a whole bunch of processes and we literally steal someone's learning. We take away their opportunity to grow through something. And what often happens is that person, whether it be a day, a month, or a year later, will have to learn that again. They will have to, it may be a different theme or different people involved, but they do have to go through some of their own growth and development for their own soul's journey. And the more that we steal other people's struggles, the harder it is on us, on our energy, on our abilities to keep growing forward. It's been a big one for a lot of people, including me. I have had to learn not to steal other people's struggles. I can't live their journey for them. I can support them, I can cheer them on, I can help in many different ways, but I can't steal it. It's not up to me, and I work really hard to keep that in my awareness, just because of the work that I do and people that I meet. Sometimes it's let me just fix that for you. And you know, I think that it's important that we are always aware of where we are with that when we're helping other people. Am I helping or am I stealing? Am I supporting or am I stealing? And I ask myself that all the time. The spiritual journey is about leaning into it, not and trying our best to look at things through spiritual lenses, through that alignment. And yes, it's not always easy to do. With practice, it gets easier. With growth and development, it gets easier. With stepping out of the physical world a little bit more, I have worked really hard on stepping back from things that don't resonate to me, or that I find that it just doesn't serve my highest good. I don't feel well energetically after engaging in something. I don't do it. And we often feel like we need permission to respond that way, to say no thank you, or to step back. You don't need permission. You just have to allow it and stand in your own truth. It's so important to honor who you are, to honor your spiritual practices, to lean into and be that bestie to yourself on the spiritual journey. I do hope that you enjoyed chatting here with me, or at least listening, but I hope you enjoyed this chit chat there. Let me get my wording straight today. As always, I am wishing you love, light, blessings, and a spirit guided day.